Good evening and welcome to Money Matters. My name is Kimon Hatza and I'm a business attorney and partner at Millcrest Law in Radnor, Pennsylvania. We focus our practice in the areas of technology, energy, life sciences, and healthcare. Tonight we're continuing our special series on business and technology leaders in the Delaware Valley. Before we get started, I want to remind our viewers that from time to time, financial issues relating to technology companies or matters will be discussed on the show. These discussions are not and should not be viewed as financial advice. Moreover, since this show is pre-recorded and shown at a later date, some of the matters discussed on the show may no longer be current. You should always speak with your financial advisor before entering into any financial transaction. I'm happy to introduce my co-host this evening, Charlie Huntington. Charlie is the head of public relations for Pennsylvania Bio. Pennsylvania Bio is the voice of advancement for the biosciences industry in Pennsylvania. Charlie, thanks for co-hosting.
Thanks, Kimon.
Charlie, I took a quick peek at the calendar for Pennsylvania Bio, and boy, it's chock full of stuff coming up, including some big events. I was wondering whether you might want to share some of that with the viewers.
Would love to. So the event I'd like to highlight is the International Bio Convention, which Philadelphia is proud to host. That'll be June 15 to 18. There'll be probably 20,000 people there from all 50 states and about 80 countries. So the last time we hosted it was in 2005.
Wow.
So it's been 10 years since it's been back here, and it's a real honor to have that convention come back. If viewers are interested in getting involved, they could go to bio.org website and learn more about it.
That was, that's a huge event. That was, what West Coast last year?
It has been, in the last few years, it's been in San Diego last year, it was in Boston, it was in Chicago, it was in Atlanta, to mention a few.
Okay, big event.
Yes.
Well, we have a great show this evening, a great guest, and a lot of topics that I'm interested in getting right into, so I think I'll turn my attention to that. Before I do, I want to remind our viewers that if you have questions that you would like us to answer on a future show, this is how you can get those questions to us.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says, Send us your questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, M-O-N-E-Y, -matters, M-A-T-T-E-R-S, TV.com.
It's now with great pleasure that I introduce our special guest this evening, Michael O'Neill. Mike has served as, he's the founder and has served as the CEO of Preferred Sands, a privately held investment and operating company since its inception in 2006. Preferred Sands is dedicated to developing disruptive technologies that provide safer, cleaner, and more efficient energy recovery across the world. Prior to his role as CEO of Preferred Sands, Mike served as the Chief Executive Officer for Preferred Real Estate Investments, Inc., a full-service real estate development firm he founded in 1992. He began his career at First Pennsylvania Bank in 1984 with a focus on lending to aggregate and mining process companies. Mike holds a bachelor's degree from Villanova University in finance and a Juris Doctorate degree from Temple University. Mike, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Could you tell us briefly about your successful career in the real estate industry and then why you pivoted and sort of leapt into the sand industry?
Sure. When I was in the lending industry, I'd run for city council, ironically against Michael Nutter, and I lost the election, and went back to work, at the bank. And at that point, I had been going to law school at night, running for office and working at the bank, and all of a sudden I was out of school for the semester, the election was over, and the world just came to a screeching halt all of a sudden. And I said, I got to find another career. And so I got in the real estate business with my brother. Having no money and trying to build a development company was a difficult thing, so we decided we would go buy the properties nobody else wanted. And so we bought old brownfield redevelopment properties that back then what a company would do when they closed a plant is they literally fence it off, leave it there, and just monitor the groundwater and do nothing. Meanwhile, it would kill the town around it. So we figure we can go to these companies, take the property off their hands for nickels on the dollar, and basically take over the environmental cleanup and redevelop it. And so we built that company for about 20 years, into about 12 million square feet of office buildings. It won a lot of awards for doing brownfield redevelopments. But as that market has changed, as interest rates came down, more and more capital poured into the market. It became more competitive, and really a lot of the fun came out of the business. It became very much, what was your IRR versus that guy? We used to create very unique spaces for people that got them really excited to be in. As that ran out, I lost interest, and I saw it peaking, at a very high value. We just decided to sell the company one day, got out of it, and then said, look, what do you do next? We had a great team of guys who had been together for 15, 20 years, and I'd sold the business with nothing to do, and I had this background in mining from the lending days. I said, let's go buy, old aggregate mines. We'll mine them for 5, 10 years, and we'll develop the real estate. And so we went down to Florida. We bought one. We raised a fund. We were going to buy about 10 more. And I hired a guy from the Midwest, and he came in and said, you ought to get in the frac sand business. Well, embarrassed enough, 7 years later, I had never heard of frac sand 7 years ago. I had no idea what fracking was, and most of the country really hadn't. And so that didn't strike me as interesting. It was 100 acres in Nebraska, and I didn't want to develop land in Nebraska. We weren't going to open up a corn factory. So, but he talked me into it. So we finally one day decided, because he was doing a nice job for us, we're going to rent a plane. We'll fly to Nebraska. We left at 6 in the morning from Avalon, the airport down there in Wildwood. I said, I'll have you all back by dinner at 5 o'clock. We'll get this out of our system. Went down, saw this place, and the guys had said they were making a fortune and they wanted to sell it. Well, they were losing a fortune. They were getting killed. But they had a great concept, and we sat up top of this huge sand pile and said, this is a great business, and we could turn this thing around, and bought it. And shortly after that, we were out of the aggregate business in Florida, and we've been in the business ever since. So, just happenstance on a summer, one summer afternoon, on a flight out of Wildwood, and here we are in the oil and gas business. So that's how life happens.
You didn't get back by 5, though.
We did not get back by 5, but we did own another company. So
that's good. That's good.
Can you just briefly for our viewers, can you talk about what is the sand business when you say the sand business?
Sure. So the oil and gas boom that we're going through here in America, is part of fracturing, tight rock. In order to fracture tight rock, you basically send down high pressure water and fluid to really pump the ground open. You create fractures, you then pump pressure in to lift the ground up. The sand is put in there to hold it open, and so they use tremendous amounts of sand that they've got to put in these fractures to hold it open so the oil and gas comes through. I tell people all the time, remember when you were a kid on the beach and you'd pick up a handful of sand, you can't crush it, but you can pour water right through it. Same idea in a well. It's under tremendous pressure. As that well closes in on it, it will hold it open enough for oil and gas to pass through, but it won't crush, and so you get the best production out of a well that way. So we basically provide the sand, and we've since built a whole technology company where we put technologies, chemistries really, around that sand to help get that well to perform at a better pace than it would otherwise do it.
How would you, if at all, would you say that your experience in the real estate industry, as well as your background in finance and your law degree, helped prepare you to be a CEO of a sand company?
Are you suggesting that a lender, lawyer, finance guy should not be running a sand company, where we're doing chemistry and geology and, I'm not sure it did prepare it for me. Maybe I wouldn't have got into it if I had a different background. But, it's interesting, the real estate business, certainly, our business is very land development, based. With mining, you're getting local approvals. There's a lot of environmental around it. And so in that respect, and even the oil business is very much a land business. And so in that way, very much like real estate, the financial parts of it's very capital intensive. So coming with a finance background and also a business that was capital intensive, very, very similar in that respect. And it's very much a deal business. You think about it, the picture, if you were going to picture the quintessential oil guy, he's a wildcatter. He's from Texas. He's got a big hat. He drives a big car. He takes big risks. Same as a real estate developer. So the businesses in personality are very, very similar. It's very boom and bust. It has the same ups and downs. I didn't know that when I got into it, but probably worse in the oil business than it is in the real estate business. So I think those things you use all the time in the business, and I find a lot of similarities. And ironically, our brownfield background of cleaning up environmental sites, we've taken an approach in the oil business that if we can do it cleaner and better, we will be more sustainable and more profitable ultimately. And so taking a clean tech approach to it, we've hired a much better team of employees. They feel much better about what they do, and we've made a lot of changes in the oil industry that have been very helpful. All that coming from really a brownfield development background. And you think about it, this business, when it started, the fracking business, the question was, will it last because of its environmental risks? And when I was in the redevelopment business, all these old properties sat empty because nobody thought you could deal with the environmental. It was very similar in its nature. And our feeling was if you took it and took a more proactive approach to the environmental issues in this business, just like we did in that business, you would create a much more sustainable industry. And in fact, a lot of those technologies have been adopted.
What would you say, when you look at what you do on a day-to-day basis and maybe out over the course of a year, is the most challenging aspect of your job as CEO of Preferred Sands?
You know, I'd say probably the most exciting part and the most challenging part is this industry is in its infancy. And so these technologies have changed to date. They're going to change even more over the next 5, 6, 7 years. And when you see the ups and downs in this market, you introduce something new and oil's at $95. And by the time it gets to market, oil's at $45 and the market's shutting down. And then it's back up again. So the most challenging thing is to figure out how to stay consistently on offense with that. You've got to watch defense, you've got to be conservative, but you've got to stay on offense because the market, as quick as it goes down at the end of the world, it also comes back and it's very strong. And keeping your team focused on offense. So the most important thing is strong, great talent. So looking for great talent, attracting great talent, and then keeping their heads focused forward in these downturns, I would say is the biggest challenge. But if you can do that, you know, your ability to just grow your company by magnitudes in a recovery is unbelievable because nothing recovers quicker or crashes quicker than the energy industry. And so being prepared for those turns and on offense all the time is very, very important. And I would say the biggest challenge, but also the most excitement in it.
What has made Preferred Sands so successful?
You know what? I think it's absolutely our people. You know, we have a very, I'd say aggressive, but aggressive in a good sense, competitive, you know, focused, you know, smart team, and very much a team. They work as a team. When I say competitive, they're not competitive with each other. You know, they're competitive on the basketball field with each other, they're competitive when we go mountain bike riding, but we share a very strong culture of team and wanting to be the best at what we do. And when you have that dedication across the board, that makes a huge difference. You know, I go to work, and, you know, I'm very proud of the people I work with, and I'm blown away by them, quite frankly, and at every level. You know, when we first got in this business, the guy who originally got us to the sand mine, I remember telling us we should stay away from the sand mine because those guys are not like you guys. You know, they think differently. And he was so divisive in the way we ran the culture. And when we turned him over and brought someone new in, what we realized was, no, all culture is the same. You attract the same culture everywhere you go. And we'll often have lenders or analysts want to go visit one of our plants, and I'll set it up and tell them to go. And they'll say, "Are you going to meet me?" "No, I'm not going to meet you. You're going to meet my plant manager." But you're going to be as blown away by him as you are by any person we have in our company, and they represent our company well. And it doesn't matter whether it's the guy who's sweeping the floors or the person running it. That culture all the way through our company is extremely unique, and very unique in this industry. This industry, as I said, is very much a sort of wildcatter's business, boom bust. When it's booming, don't worry about how you do it or what you do it, just do it because you're going to make a lot of money. When it's bust, same thing in reverse. Doesn't matter how you do it or what you do, you're going to lose money, so don't do anything, just wait it out. So to build a team of people that are trying to look through these ups and downs very consistently and say, we're going to be the best at what we do, we want to be number one in the U.S., and then we want to be number one worldwide, is what makes it unique. Without that team, we couldn't possibly, you know, have that focus.
How many employees do you have right now?
So we're close to 600.
Okay.
About 580 employees between plant and here in Conshohocken. I mean, here in Radnor.
When I think of the mining industry, when I think of the technology that's happened within clean tech, when you're sourcing employees, are most of them coming out of they've been in the energy space before, or not necessarily so?
It's a great question. So you asked me what's unique about our company, and I said it's the quality of our people. In order to get the highest quality people, our people come from everywhere.
Okay.
You know, if you were to pick two industries and say oil and gas and mining, and if we have 600 employees, I would tell you probably 570 of them came from other industries. You know, very few came from our industry. And that's not because there's anything wrong with our industry. It's just that when they come from industry, they come with a preconceived notion. This industry is changing so rapidly that whatever you did 7 years ago is valuable. It's important to know. I don't discount experience, but it's also important to bring other people in from other industries that bring more technology. The interesting thing about this industry is because it goes through such long periods of ups and downs. There was about a 20-year period in North America where there was no energy industry. You know, oil was selling about $35 a barrel, maybe $29 a barrel. We were paying $1 a gallon for gas for 20 years, and it happened to coincide with the time I graduated from college and the next 20 years. And so in the industry, there were people my age and older, and there were people who were 30 and younger, you know, and think of that difference. You know, when we went to college, there was no computer. You didn't have a laptop. You didn't have a cell phone. You didn't have email. You maybe knew what a fax machine was. Then jump forward to that next, you know, generation who's had 20 phones, worked on 1,000 computer programs. So our industry is very technology backwards because it's built on guys like me. You know, when I came out of college, I learned my technology through going to a bank. If you went to work for a computer company, you learned technology, but you didn't have it innately.
Right.
When they went in the oil industry, it was very much a land business. It was not a technology business. So it stayed frozen in time in that respect. Today, you know, you bring people in from the outside, and the young people they've hired, they have a different expectation. You know, they recycled trash. They didn't go into oil wanting to be the same old oil, dirty, but their father's oil industry. They want something new and clean. They like our clean tech. You know, so the people we attract, we want people who are going to bring that technology into the business, come with a mindset, help challenge our company and drive it. And we look for the best people, and we look very closely, we interview very hard, and so our people come from every walk of life. I think we have some 25 countries represented in our employee base, you know, across the company, not by design, but because that's where we found, you know, the best talent, the best people. And so it's a neat mix, and when you combine that with the people that do have the experience and our customers, it's a powerful thing in developing new products and trying to be a leader in it.
Kimon and I have spent many of our episodes interviewing life science, biotech, pharma CEOs in the area, and I'm struck by the talent that you've found in the pharma industry. You have been able to, I believe, find people who are used to change, right,
Yep.
within pharma, and maybe that's been helpful in terms of, you know, guys, we don't know which way the wind's going to shift, but
Sure.
it will shift. I can guarantee you that. And these are people who are comfortable with change.
Right,
So.
and the whole company. You know, it's ironic to say, you know, we would run ads to hire people, and we get no responses. And here we're in Radnor, with great companies making money, couldn't get anybody to come. So I said, let me see that ad. Looking for a director of sales for a sand company. I said, let me ask you a question. Who ever grew up wanting to go be a director of sales for a sand company? I said, will you rewrite that ad? Dynamic energy company, you know, changing the way we, you know, explore for energy. Normally looking for, you know, a senior level manager with finance. All of a sudden, 100 applications came in.
Sure.
You know, we had to get them to the door.
That's
But
right.
when they get to the door, they realize the future of really our region, our country, a lot of it, the next 25 years, is going to be the biopharma area, and it's going to be an energy area of all sorts. That's going to drive so much industry here that once they understand and they can harness that and play such a big role, you're able to attract the best talent out there. But it was a tough sale, you know, being in the sand business. You know?
Absolutely, absolutely. What makes you all a leader in disruptive technology within your industry?
Well, you know, I would say to a degree that's easy because, for instance, the coating that we use to protect our sand, the coatings we compete with have been around since 1940. There are about 8 guys in the business. They all use the same coating. It's the same technology since 1940. It's never been rethought. When you think about how wells today are so much deeper, and they have horizontal wells with 100 stages, and the pumps are 5 times the size, and the fluids are different, and the shale you're going into is different than the old reservoir type of oil wells, to think they're still using the same product as 1940, it's not hard to be disruptive, you know, to that technology. You know, you've had a lot of years to work on it. So it's really looking at it from a fresh perspective and saying the world has changed. You know, what you've always done, go back to that timeline I gave you. You know, in 1985, when you got in this business, you know, that market, or you were in the business before 1985, that business was very different than when it picked back up in 2004. And yet, you're pumping the same products. And so the one big thing, we created a database called Navport. It's a software company. We track 150,000 wells in North America, and we track everything that's consumed and all the production. So, and we know the temperatures, and we know the depths, and it's the only database like it. And we look very closely at every well, how it performed, what was different, and we use data. And so data comes back and tells us this doesn't work, this did work. We try a new product. What's the data tell you? So a database approach versus, if you can picture, the oil industry is really a land-driven business. These guys are all land acquirers. There was a book called The Frackers. And talking about these guys find out huge swaths of reserves. That was their game. If I bought a great reserve, I'm going to make money. And if I didn't, I didn't. And how I drilled it or ran it, that was secondary. So for us, we would say, look, those great land guys out there, we're not a land guy. But we can take what they've done really well and work on technologies that will help them take that land and get the most out of it. And that's a different way of looking at the market. It is also a realization, or I should say a belief, that oil is not going back to $95. And so what worked at $85, $90, and $95 is not going to work if oil settles in at $65. So we've geared our thinking as a company is, let's assume oil, you know, goes back up to $65 or $60 or $55. How do we help our customers make money? That's a very different view than I think everyone in our industry looks at this market. So therefore, they're shooting at a different target than we are. You know, I'm just a believer that for America to be competitive, we're going to have to really shoot for a lower break even on what we do, and the only way you're going to do that is by creating technologies that are going to create a high performance well.
Well said.
One topic that is usually at at the forefront of the minds of guests on the show, and it's also something that's of interest to the viewers, is funding. Can you talk a little bit about how Preferred Sands is currently funded?
Sure. So we originally self-funded the company. So I'd say for the first 7 years of our existence, we funded it all ourselves. We had local partners who I dealt with in the real estate business for 20 years, and myself and my internal partners, and we funded the whole thing. We got too large for that, though. So, last July, we brought KKR in as a partner. KKR is probably one of the 3 largest energy investing private equity firms in the world. And so a lot of experience there. And what I liked about it is they had a common vision with us that they felt the future of this business was technology. The sand business was a great sort of foundational business, but that really technology is where you can make a difference and drive the well. And so we brought them in as a partner. So they did initial funding and they're partners with us in the business. And then beyond that, we're also there to go do other projects as we see, other technology opportunities, what we're doing. And that's been a very good move for us. They've been a very good partner.
Okay. And will you be looking to them, or what do you see as how you will fund yourself in the near term and then going forward?
We'll probably take the company public. There are certain things we'll do. Like, for instance, we're looking at investing in some wells for some technologies that we want to do. We'll raise a separate fund for that. They'll probably do that with us, ultimately. So I'd say probably in conjunction with them and our existing partners who we've had and public funds, that combination, in the various entities that we have will probably be the way that we'll fund it going forward. It's such a big industry. Well, people forget this is a $3 trillion industry. And so what's great about it is it's a $3 trillion industry. What's bad about it is you can create a great idea, but if you can't scale it, you just can't be in this business. And so you've got to have, constant liquidity and constant ability to grow.
What would you say is the biggest barrier to entry into the industry?
I think today if you look at the two businesses separately, on the sand business, I would say it's primarily the logistics side of it. For a long time, guys would buy a big piece of ground up in Wisconsin or Minnesota, open up a mine, and they flooded the market with sand. What they quickly realized, though, because these wells are all over North America, it's not so much that you have a sand mine. A lot of guys have sand mines. It's can you get it into the regions it needs to be in and to your customers well in a cost-effective basis. I call it lowest landed cost. That business largely become logistics. If you don't have the rail relationships, you don't have the relationships for terminals to land your rail cars, turn them around quick and come back. If you don't have the relationship with your customers to get it from the terminal to their well site on time, have it in the market all the time, you can't compete because it really is like a just-in-time thing. So I would say that's the biggest barrier to entry to the basic sand business. On the technology side, the hardest thing is to find people who want to think away from what's going on today and say, okay, where do we need to be 10 years from now, and what isn't happening, and what could be better, than what it is today, and finding people smart enough, open-minded enough, and focused enough to say, we're going to drive change, and not for change's sake, to make that well better. And no matter what we do, I think the hardest thing I find with that is, you get someone very smart, they spend a lot of time on something, and then the first thing I say to them is, okay, now go make that obsolete. Make sure that's obsolete within 2 years, go replace it. That's a hard thing, to get over that pride of authorship to say, okay, I created something. But just like Steve Jobs drove Apple so hard, I was telling some of our guys today, remember, he got fired from Apple. So here's the guy who drove the #1 technology company in the world, got fired because he kept trying to get him to move to the next thing, and they just couldn't understand that. The minute he died, Samsung crushed them with cell phones around the world, and then they got back on their feet and came back. Technology moves, all the time, and so trying to get those people and have that focus and go forward, I would say that's the second barrier to entry. Very hard to find those kind of people with that kind of talent, and I just think we have a very unique culture that they're very, very attracted to because we're going to embrace those ideas. We find those people, they want to drive new ideas, and they know as a company we're going to support them.
Okay. You've been in the banking business before, and I realize you said that there are some parallels in terms of land development with what you're doing now. From a lending, you also shared a little bit in terms of private equity has come in and funded some of the ventures that you and others are involved with. From a lending standpoint, when I think of risk to lenders, I think of restaurants, number one, probably real estate would be right up there. Where would technology and mining fit in there? Is it lock and step with what's happening in real estate? Is it more aggressive, more conservative? How do the banks interpret it?
Well, right now, because where oil is, banks have pulled back tremendously.
Right.
Of course, in today's regulatory climate, banks have pulled back from a lot of this lending. Largely, it's become term loan Bs, and it's floated in the marketplace, or bonds that do it. But they actually like the mining business because of the collateral nature of it. You know, the technology they don't like because there's no collateral to it. You know, it's hard for them to lend against. It's hard for them to get their hands on what that asset is. You know, unless you have earnings in place. You know, they'll lend against earnings. But they really like the mining business because they like the you know, the mine. I mean, you'll appreciate this as a lender. You know, when I think about my lending experience and apply it to here, you know, what I think mostly is credit underwriting. You know, we do business with lots of companies, and a great story I tell our guys, I was invited to dinner one night with a customer, and guy got finished dinner, and I said, you know, how's your company? He said, well, we're unbelievable. You ought to see the cars and the planes my boss has. Well, right away, I said to my partner, I said, now, when I was at the bank, those were probably the two biggest red flags that said, get away from this guy.
Pickup truck,
Right. So I was glad for my
absolutely right.
So I was glad for my $16,000 a year training program at the bank, you know, because we walked away, and that company went under 7 months later. But you know, the lending plays a very big role. I mean, very, very big. It's a very capital-intensive industry.
I know we're limited for time, Kimon, and I wanted to ask, you know, gas prices, natural gas prices and oil prices have, specifically oil's come down like mad. It's off 60% or some such thing. What's the future of fracking in greater Philadelphia, our region, and then, say, Pennsylvania in general?
Yeah, fracking's here to stay. Fracking's here to stay long term. Pennsylvania is largely a natural gas play, and natural gas is way off too. But what's happened is, when I got in this industry, they felt they needed $7 to break even on a natural gas, you know, well. Today, I would say 2 years ago, they said it was $4. Today, guys are pumping at $2.50. So the industry keeps getting better and better and better. I think it's here to stay. I think the politics are very important here in Pennsylvania. You know, they want a shale tax. I think a shale tax is perfectly fine. I think what they have to make sure is that our product's got a place to market. The biggest challenge to Pennsylvania is we can't move enough of the product to our cities because of pipelines, and they're working on that. But that's a very, very important thing. If we have pipelines, low-cost gas is here to stay. That will drive gigantic opportunities in the industrial part of our business. It'll lower your heating bills. It'll lower your gasoline bills, which will drive the economy. It's very, very positive with a very long-term play, but it'll be cyclical.
Thanks, Mike.
We have about 30 seconds,
Okay.
and you probably won't be able to do justice to this, but what are some of can you identify at least a critical advancement in technology in oil and gas space that you've made at Preferred Sands?
Yeah, I would say two things. Our coatings, which protect the sand and they're clean environmentally. The coating we replace leached about 5 major chemicals into the well, so and it's gotten up to 25% better production for our customer. And the other one is Dust Pro, which is a biodegradable coating to lower dust on a site. Really, it's a health and human safety issue. 75% turnover on a well site because they're breathing through respirators and all, which all go away with our product. And the turnover drops to 20%. It's just a safer work environment. So both of those have been huge, and we've got 3 more that we're working on. It's been great.
Well, we're out of time. Thank you very much for being on the show. I feel like we could do another show. We probably have enough stuff. At any rate, I'd like to thank our special guest, Mike O'Neill, for being on the show this evening. Also, Charlie, thank you for co-hosting. The next guest on Money Matters will be Fred Consolet, who's the finance director of Kathy Davis Studio, Inc. Money Matters is now available as an audible podcast on iTunes and Stitcher Radio, listed as Money Matters, the podcast for mobile devices. The video is available on our YouTube channel as well as on our website. Thank you very much for watching this evening, and we'll see you again next time.